Hi, everybody. Mitch Tannenbaum here. Thanks for joining me today for the Security News Update. Obviously, since you're watching this video, you know about our video site, cybersecurity.us. On there, there's a video about using voice authentication. And what we're hearing now is that is not only is it currently risky, but it's going to be more risky in the near future. In the Security and Privacy Alerts Department, the Defense Department has issued a memo to the CIO, Katie Arrington, saying we need a plan in the next 15 days from when the memo was issued, which was a couple of days ago, that achieves and also maintains a secure environment for our warfighters. This includes using existing capabilities like CMMC, but it also says that they want to ensure them to the maximum extent possible that all information technology capabilities, including cloud services, developed and procured for DoD are reviewed and validated as secure against supply chain attacks by adversaries such as China and Russia. So if you sell to the Defense Department, be warned, they could be upping the pressure even more than they already are to get things secure. If you need help with that, please reach out to us. For those of you who are developers, you may have heard of something called vibe coding, is where you get to talk to an application on the internet to kind of talk in English and write code. But the question is, first of all, does it have any guardrails? And then, we heard of a story this week where someone told it not to do something specifically, and what it did was it deleted their production data. So, yes, it's good, but it's early in its maturity, and I think that you have to be careful. In the CMMC world, besides that conversation about Miss Harrington, we're seeing more and more of the big primes issuing kind of ominous statements to their subs. Like Lockheed said, by now, all DIB companies managing CUI should have fully implemented and be confidently meeting NIST 800-171. And Boeing said, starting mid 2025, which is already here, all DoD contractors and subcontractors must achieve the specified CMMC levels to secure contract awards. So the DoD is getting pretty serious about what's going on here. I'm sorry, the prime contractors, as a result of the DoD pressuring them, of course, getting serious. And if you sell into the DoD space and later, probably next year, anywhere into the federal government, beware, because this is not your father's Oldsmobile. These guys are starting to get serious about it. In a reference article, the Pentagon says that it was not impacted by the SharePoint bug. Katie Arrington, the DoD CIO, is talking about that in an article. She's been doing daily calls with Microsoft, which is a luxury that most of us don't have. But being, God knows what they spend on Microsoft, billions of dollars probably. She can probably have a call anytime she wants, any day of the week, and they'll take her call and get the right people. But it is interesting to see that they did not get whacked. Other departments, including energy, homeland, and education, were not so lucky. So it is certainly affecting the federal government, just apparently not DoD. In the important issues and patches department, our dear friends at Cisco, they not only get a 10, but they got 3 10s in a row. Yay! Well, not really when it comes to this. So these are 10 out of 10 bugs between this month and last month, 3 of them. And Cisco admits that one bug, this month's bug, is actually being actively exploited. It's in Cisco's Identity Services Engine, or ISE. So if you run that, you definitely want to patch now. Interestingly enough, the Canadian folks are watching what's going on elsewhere in the world. So in June, France's Senate held a hearing as part of its study on data sovereignty, meaning we want our data in our country. And Microsoft, who testified there, admitted that data from French citizens might be delivered to U.S. authorities without even telling the French authorities, and certainly without getting their permission. And Microsoft is in a bit of a pickle because they're a U.S. company. They have to follow U.S. laws, but they also operate in the EU, and the fines in the EU can be staggering. So they're really between a rock and a hard place. I don't know what the hell they do to keep both sets of laws on keel. Well, the Canadians are watching these hearings and realize that if they're using Microsoft's platforms, data sovereignty is a myth, total myth. And it's true whether they use Microsoft or Amazon or Google or anybody else. But the problem is that most of these guys use Microsoft, and this includes for both corporate data, but also for government data and military data. So really the only option there is to have their own sovereign country clouds. And, one of those examples is OVH in France and Ionis in Germany. But not every country has one of those. And those don't necessarily host everything that you want. And if you want to use things like Office 365, then you're forced to use the Microsoft cloud, really. And it's interesting to see what happens here. But, the good news is that countries are starting to wake up and understand that, the laws that they have passed are basically laws that will be ignored. But we haven't seen any major fines yet. And I don't know, what Microsoft's defense is going to be in this case if they break EU law or French law or some other country's law in order to comply with a different country's law. That's problematic. I don't know what a good defense of that might be. It's in the legal department. An Arizona woman, I guess this was also legal. An Arizona woman is sentenced in a deepfake IT worker scam. Christina Marie Chapman, who is 50, was sentenced to 102 months in prison for her role in facilitating the fake IT, North Korean fake IT worker scam. And they have some pictures of her house where she has racks and racks of laptops, each one with labels on it indicating the company that she is scamming. So she certainly can't claim that she didn't know. The scheme generated $17 million, which doesn't, given what they were doing, doesn't seem like a lot of money. So they must have caught it relatively quickly. We know of multiple companies that have either been targeted or compromised to one degree or another as a result of this scam. And, even though they convicted her, that doesn't mean that there aren't other people that, doing the same thing. So do not think that this is handled. In the education department, there's a hidden battlefield, and that is undersea. The cables and pipes and conduits that run undersea, many of them are really horribly secured, just because the people who are doing it figure that compromising these things is off limit. Plus, it's hard to really protect these things, and we're seeing cases, for example, where a Russian ship was floating above an undersea cable minutes before the cable was damaged. I'm sure that's a coincidence. But the U.S., Australia, Japan, and India are trying to figure out how they can go improve the security of undersea infrastructure. And it's hard because there's a lot of undersea to protect. The Baltic area has really been a hotbed of attacks, and the UK has deployed underwater robots that can stay submerged forever, basically, and can disarm bombs and sabotage devices. So, but I think there's a lot to be done there. And if you're dependent on going across one of the oceans to do whatever you're doing, that might be talking to customers or talking to vendors. When these cables go out, that's a problem. In the breach department, CoinDCX confirms that they lost $44 million in crypto as a result of an internal account that was compromised. So the good news here is that no customer money was stolen, but still questions the solvency of CoinDCX. They say that they're going to eat it, and that they have the funds to eat it. So, I mean, good news is, if you were using that, you had money there, your money is still good. But remember, there is no government protections, no insurance, no anything. You are on your own. You are counting on, hoping on that the company does a good job of protecting your money. And if they don't do a good job, that they're willing to make you whole. But in cases where we've seen that before, where customer money was affected, Yeah, sometimes they made you whole, sometimes they didn't. Sometimes they just shut down and ran away. But even in the cases where they made you whole, it wasn't immediate. It took some time, in cases sometimes months. Which one is that's the way the breach crumbles, and that's named after the Crumble Cookie Company. There's a gourmet cookie company that charges a small fortune for their cookies, which are quite tasty but very expensive. The Everest gang claims that they hacked it. The breach seems to include mostly data on thousands and thousands of employees, and that includes the franchisees' employees, and it includes government IDs and all kinds of stuff that the company had on employees. Um, that gang is Russia aligned. So, they had a ransom deadline. I don't know if the company is going to pay, what they're going to do, whether these guys are going to go after the individual employees. But suffice it to say, if you work for Crumble or one of their franchisees, your data is probably in the wind at this point. And this is really, in some sense, not news, but it is escalating. Hackers are weaponizing open source software. They are contributing to open source projects, and oh yeah, they're adding a little extra to their contributions, which are backdoors or whatever, exfiltration of data. There's one group of folks that have been scanning open source projects looking for malware, and as of right now, their malware found count was 845,000 pieces of malware. So this is not a one-off problem. What this means is whether you're using AI to generate code, or whether because that comes from the stuff that's potentially compromised, or whether you're just downloading stuff from GitHub and other repositories, you need to check very carefully to make sure that the code meets your security standards. And of course, we'll be happy to help you with that. CISA's funding for threat hunting of critical infrastructure was canceled. There was a project called Cyber Sentry that came out of Lawrence Livermore National Lab, which is, contracted to the Energy Department, but run by one of the big defense contractors. The program was canceled last week. They shut it down. What we're missing in terms of the Chinese and North Korean going after critical infrastructure, that means private as well as public critical infrastructure, is unclear. But we'll find out in the next couple of months when, China goes off and takes something out completely because we're not looking for it because we decided to save a few bucks. Speaking of big deals, the FBI says thousands of people are involved in a group called the Com. It's a loose affiliation of hackers and other miscreants. They launch cyber attacks to steal money and information. They deal in ransomware, swatting, extortion, a whole bunch of other stuff. Their targets are typically underage kids and usually girls, and threaten to do all kinds of evil things. I mean, even these guys have even done kidnapping. So, and then they fight with each other because they're a bunch of little kids. So, it's a challenge, and because of the size and the looseness of the affiliation, the FBI really has. I mean, it is really, in fairness to the FBI, that's a hard problem to solve. But they are warning people about it. And in this week's News Bites, AI is great, but is it secure? It kind of leans on what I just said. Uh, Multiple medical practices we're starting to hear are permanently shutting down after cyber attacks. They just don't have the money to recover from it, so they just shut down. And in some cases, these are the only resources that are available to people in rural areas, and now they're just out of luck. Google took a month to shut down a phone malware organization that was using their servers, even though researchers told them specifically what was going on. It still took them a month. They did eventually shut it down, but it took them way too long. And here's an interesting one. If you are hoping that organic search will send people to your websites, Google AI overviews are making users half as likely to click on your website because the user sees that AI overview at the front. It may be good enough and never go any further. But as Google goes off and scans the web to try to figure out what the answer is, they still charge you for clicks. So even though there is, virtually zero chance of anybody going to your website, you still get to pay for it. may make you rethink whether Google ads are a wise investment. And DHS has put a 22-year-old gardener in charge of fighting domestic terror. I know weeds are terrorists, but I don't think he has the skill to go do that. They are now trying to do all kinds of spin after they spun this kid up to spin it down. No telling what the reality was. He was a ardent supporter of the president, so I think they decided to give him a position without regard to whether he had any particular skill in the area. And so that's kind of it. Until next time, thanks for listening. We appreciate it as always. And if there's anything we can do to help, please contact us.